Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here to the Automated Millionaire video channel or podcast. I welcome you with deepest and sincere, warm heart here if you are a returning listener or viewer to this channel. And if you're brand new, again, I extend the same warm welcome. I'm Mikhail Pitzner. I'm known as the Automated Millionaire, and I am the creator and founder of the automatedmillionaire.com and all the coaching and programs that are available there. Just to give you a brief, quick insight here, I am known as a business consultant who actually became so good at helping struggling business in particular, turning them around when they were very near bankruptcy. And then in just matters of just a few weeks or maybe a couple of months, we turned them onto a course of prosperity and onto really stellar, amazing profits. I did so without making the business owners and their teams work harder, but just making sure that they followed a system. A lot of business owners, a lot of teams out there, they're doing a great job, but they are failing very often at making the business prolong its life or sustain its life in profitability. So very often, a lot of these companies, maybe even mom and pop stores or so on, they started out, everything went really well, then they grew and they grew and grew, and everything was really awesome. And all of a sudden they grew, and now they are waking up one day, they have 10, 15, 20 people employed, or maybe even much more. They have maybe service vehicles, let's say 15, 20 vehicles and so on. They have great service, they have great product, they have great knowledge, they are great at their trade, but all of a sudden they're just not getting the right results, and they fail to understand, well, how do I go about it? And like I said, a lot of them, then they start having, more debts arising, and eventually they actually lose an ability to create more debt, to have more funding coming in. And now they're still producing the losses, which means that all of a sudden their livelihoods, and certainly also the businesses, they become they come into jeopardy. Now, if you want to know more about how it is that I could come in, not knowing anything about the business for real before I came in, not knowing much about the industry in many cases, how was I able to help those business owners and help the team turn the business around, and how was I able to do so very, very fast? Well, I used a system, I call it and offer it here in my programs and so on, as the Automated Millionaire Business System. It's a system that not only puts everything into its right place and everybody gets the right role and understands their place in the organization and what they need to do, but it also helps them, both the business owners and the teams, find extra cash in the business. You see, when I came in as a business consultant or business turnaround agent, I was charging a lot of money for every single hour, and those hours would very, very quickly extend into hundreds of hours. So you can imagine when you don't have any money and you have limited resources left, limited funds left, and now I come in there and I want to be paid on a weekly basis, then it becomes very, very challenging for the business owner to, first of all, muster up the courage to go ahead and do so. But they also very often realize that it's either that or it's turning around, closing up shop. Now, I was able to help these business owners. We have a 97, 98% success rate. And, my own personal opinion is that it's only those who soon after I leave will revert to their old ways who are not successful. That means that instead of keeping the path of working the system that was implemented, they now go back and say, well, the system was really good, but now they forget what it did for them, and they go back to their old ways. And like I said in previous episodes several times over, if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. So you definitely want to do that. If you're learning such a new system, when you're seeing such progression of results, well, then just because that, let's say in this case, I am not there to look over the shoulder, you want to keep transgressing down that road and following that path, because that's where you got all the success. Now, in this episode here, what I want to talk about is a kind of like a cool little saying that I got from one of my mentors just recently. And he basically said, perfection equals Poorhouse. And so I want to touch about that. It almost is self-explanatory, but pretty much what he was talking about is that when we're looking for that perfection, when we want to, like, I'm not going to, like, for instance, I've done this as a business turnaround agent for a long time. I've had a lot of success and so on, but now I want to bring it online. That requires of me, of course, a lot of changes. I have to record some videos. We spoke about in the last 2 episodes so on. We spoke about my hesitancy, being in front of a camera, being in front of a microphone and so on. I'm not accustomed to it. So although I've been teaching a lot of clients and so on in person, the dynamics of that in person is kind of lost sometimes because now I'm speaking into a camera. There's no person there, and it just feels funny. And so what very often would happen is that now you want to make everything perfect. Oh, I'm stumbling in this episode here. I get the wrong words, or I'm like, I'm trying to think ahead and speak at the same time. That's a solution that's not often that great, right? But I want to convey to you, and that's why I'm not going to edit like crazy for this episode or anything but that. I want you to understand that if you're seeking perfection, you'll just end up never launching. You'll end up never putting it out there. You'll end up never doing the effort, which means, first of all, you don't get the feedback. And sometimes the feedback can be very valuable. You can use the feedback to actually make it better. Yes, I know that I stumble on the words. I know that, some of it isn't as smooth as I want it to be. I know that sometimes I'll put in those terrible sounds of, but it is what it is. I know that as we move along and I do more and more episodes, it'll probably become more second nature to me and it'll probably flow better. But it is critically important that in my case that I accept that it won't be perfect. Because if it's going to be perfect, I'll have to do it over and over and over. And something that should take me pretty much the length of the recording here, it'll end up taking me days, weeks, and maybe even months or years, right? Because we're looking for that perfection. It is in high degree an imperfect world, and the imperfection is okay. You might even say, in my case, that, well, it's part of the personality. I'll take that excuse if nothing else, and I'll accept and embrace that this is a journey. So for you, I want you to adopt also this understanding that do not strive for perfection. You make every effort to deliver upon high quality. You make every effort to deliver with professionalism. You make every effort to make sure your service is in high standards. And you make every effort as a business owner to really make the business a great one. And that also spells into making the great profits, right? But you won't probably have it perfect at all times. Maybe there'll be certain episodes that are like, that was very near perfect. That was amazing. And that's great. Those are the extra little blessings we get once in a while. And you can probably get to a point where you are known to be like the place to go to for your services or your products or your solutions. Like, for instance, when I ran the limousine service back in Denmark, we were known that we were the only game in town until one point when we weren't, right? But you can get to that point. But it's always going to be just like life is. Sometimes there's ups and sometimes there's down. And you've got to be okay with both journeys. And then you're just going to meet with the expectations of that you will be met with challenges. And then you're going to be resourceful to meet those challenges. I also want to link into this episode here the idea about perfection is basically also a different avenue of our procrastination. So we all know that procrastination is such a killer. We don't launch, we don't take the first step, we are scared, we are thinking, we're coming up with all these other excuses, and when we do so, we just prolong the length of time where we are not progressing anywhere. I would venture to say it's better to take a step forward, even if it's a mistake, even if you're kind of like stumbling, even if you're kind of like making a fool out of yourself. if and when you can say, well, you know what, it got me over one hump, and at least I'll do it again, and then I'll do it better next time, right? Rather that than saying, well, it's not perfect, I'm gonna hold off, I'm gonna wait, I'm gonna just wait and do it later, because that is basically just a procrastination. It's basically you're coming up with all the excuses for why not to do it. But if we look at all the great leaders out there, if we look at all the great, those who we are aspiring to be and so on, they started off having challenges. They ran into walls and brick walls and obstacles and so on. And they probably had the same emotions that we go through. So when we are thinking about, I want it perfect, or I'm procrastination. So sometimes we're just procrastinating, not necessarily because we want it perfect, but maybe we have doubt in ourselves. Maybe we have a limiting factor coming in there that's like, I don't feel confident in delivering this message, or whatever it is, right? So again, the gist of this episode here is that perfection equals Poorhouse, and perfection is just a procrastination. And we want to do neither. So I invite you to embrace the imperfect. I invite you to go out there and push forward. You want to implement a new system, and hey, some of it's going to work and maybe some of it isn't going to work. When you want to find a better way, I definitely invite you to go and seek expert help in finding the best route. You want to maybe lean and look and listen to people who have gone the road before you and have something that has proven with a high level of success that actually works over and over. So let's wrap up for today. This was Mikael Pitzner, the Automated Millionaire. I thank you so much for your time here, and I hope to see you in tomorrow's episode.